Hey everyone, welcome back. This is CNY Conversations. I am Jason Flink, your host, and this is episode 29 of CNY Conversations. Flying solo again today, and today I thought I would talk about famous faces or famous people of Central New York. And I think we're all familiar with the famous people like Richard Gere, maybe not, the Baldwins, a lot of famous athletes that have come through Syracuse University. And we have a rich history. People that grew up and were raised here in Central New York and went on to do great things, to be actors, to be political activists, to be educators. And as I was doing my research on this podcast, I started looking at who are some of the not so notable names that do have some kind of fame around the world, and maybe even these range from individuals that are writers, musicians, actors, athletes, educators, even community leaders. So, some of the early pioneers and innovators that I have found, and this one I was aware of, was Frank Baum. And Frank grew up in Chittenango, but this is where he really developed his love for storytelling and kind of those fantastical worlds. And Frank Baum created The Wizard of Oz. And I think that if you know anything about Central New York, you know about The Wizard of Oz. But the interesting part, and some personal information I have, is the Baums actually had farmland in Mattydale. And what is currently, I believe, what is currently Kmart Plaza in that area of Mattydale was the Baum farm. And if the story's correct, Frank Baum spent a lot of time on that farm, but he spent time between Chittenango and Mattydale. So the inventor of the waffle iron, believe it or not, came up as Jerry Syracuse. And I don't know how accurate that is, but, uh, you know, Jerry was the inventor of the waffle iron in 1896. And I think if anything revolutionized breakfast, it was the waffle iron. And so, I'm not sure how accurate that is. It's something that I came up with. I also saw that the creator of the electric waffle iron may have been Cornelius Swat Hout of Troy, New York. So I think a lot of times when it comes to inventions and being an inventor and your fame that comes from that, it really depends if you trademark and patent your invention for it to be an actual thing. Um, but the other name that I found early on was Maltby Babcock, and Babcock, used a simple and accurate method for measuring butterfat content in milk. This really had an economic impact in the dairy industry in New York State, especially around Central New York. A lot of cattle farms, a lot of dairy farms, and being able to measure the different contents of milk could really play an impact. So moving on to some more fun things that I found here. So I don't know if you do or don't know, but Bobcat Goldthwait actually grew up in North Syracuse, graduated from North Syracuse High School. Bobcat is a comedian and actor. He was in the Police Academy films, Shakes the Clowns, World's Greatest Dad. Had that iconic voice. The way he's on, I'm not going to attempt to try to imitate that, but he had his iconic voice. So Bobcat really, started his roots in North Syracuse. Then there's Ronnie James Dio. Started an early music career in Cortland with his band Vegas Kings, and he started that at 15 years old. So with that, he had kind of an iconic vocal style and a powerful stage presence. And I guess he earned the name of Metal God, who inspired countless heavy metal artists. So, he had a rise to fame with Black Sabbath and Rainbow, contributing to iconic songs like Paranoid, Rainbow Rising, and Holy Diver. Never knew that. As I add to my coffee intake. So then there was Dylan Baker, and Dylan had Syracuse roots and an early acting career in local productions here. So it looks like Dylan Baker had performances in Happiness, Spider-Man 2, and The Good Wife. He also collaborated with renowned directors such as David Lynch, Todd Solondz, and Steven Spielberg. So that's some famous performers. Um, I came across Siobhan Phelan Hogan, who went to school at Syracuse University and had a breakout role as the SNL lunch lady. Never knew that. And she participated or acted in comedic films such as Stepmom, Big Daddy, and The Meddler. So, real interesting stuff. And then there's Tom Kenny. Tom, again, grew up in Syracuse. He was a voice actor, and he got a real interest in that, listening to radio shows and impersonating characters. So he has had iconic roles in SpongeBob, Ice King in Adventure Time, Hefner Wolf in Rocky's Modern Life. So that's probably one of the true pioneers in voiceovers. Then there's Will Allen. Will Allen, had a athletic career at Syracuse University, playing basketball with Jim Boeheim or under Jim Boeheim, but then went on to play football for the Miami Dolphins, Go Dolphins, New York Giants, and Pittsburgh Steelers. He has been involved in community initiatives. He is a founder of Growing Power Inc., and that promotes urban agriculture and healthy food access. So, some community leaders and influencers that I found. This one you may be familiar with, Dr. Nancy Cantor. She was the chancellor of Syracuse University from 2004 to 2014. She worked a lot with social justice initiatives and her work in issues with poverty and racism. Then there's Dr. William Pierce. Dr. Pierce had a role in the Freedom Rides of 1961. Those were nonviolent protests challenging segregation, mostly on interstate buses and bus terminals. He was a big part of the civil rights movement, and his later work was as an educator, as well as continuing his commitment to social justice and equality. So some local philanthropists and entrepreneurs have a real tough time talking today. This is going to be an interesting podcast. But, and it, I'd also like to know of some famous people, could be athletes, actors, whatever. Drop a comment on the video if you're watching. Let me know of maybe some famous people around Syracuse, Central New York that I might have missed. So when it comes to philanthropy and entrepreneurs, the first name that always pops into my mind is Adam Weitzman. And if you don't know Adam, Adam's family started Weitzman's metal recycling, metal shredding. That's really where they started their entrepreneur journey. But Adam has moved on to several different pathways, does a lot for the community, does a lot for local sports. He's a coach and a mentor to a lot of athletes and performers. If you've never checked out some of Adam's work, you should check it out online. But also what came up was Michael Haney. He was the founder and CEO of Haney and Company, which was a leading insurance and financial services firm in Syracuse. Did a lot of efforts, including supporting local education, healthcare, and arts organizations, as well as a board member for some community organizations. And there was Elaine Copeland, who's the founder and CEO of Cope Health Solutions, a healthcare provider specializing in addiction treatment and mental health services. Can't have enough of those. We have a real problem. That's a whole different podcast, but a real problem with addiction and mental health around Syracuse and Central New York. So the more we have of these people, the better off the community is. But she had a real commitment to providing quality health care to underserved communities around Central New York. And she was an advocate for mental health awareness and had a lot of involvement in various social justice initiatives. So then there was Eric Maurer, as a founder of Eric Maurer and Associates, is globally recognized advertising marketing agency in Syracuse. I've never heard of it, but he had an innovative approach to marketing, earning him recognition as one of the 100 most influential people in advertising. I had a lot of support, or gave a lot of support and commitment to supporting local arts and cultural institutions. So some folks that you may or may not have thought of. I know when I saw this list when I was doing my research, it was definitely something that, or some folks that I really had not thought of. I think when we think of Syracuse and Central New York, we think a lot of sports with Syracuse University. Dave Bing, Jim Boeheim, even some of the more notable football players, Jim Brown, and you can go. The list goes on and on when it comes to Syracuse University sports. But there's several musicians that really have started locally and have had a national impact. Jess Novak, Joel Tier. So a lot of these folks that really, they grew up here, they've lived here, or they currently live here, and they've gone on to do some national things is pretty outstanding. So, again, I'd love to hear of maybe some famous people that I might have missed in this podcast episode. Drop a comment, and please like and share this around. Let's continue the conversation, because really what I'm doing with the podcast is kind of growing a community around conversation. So I'd love to continue the conversation and hear about some famous or influential people that you know of that really have made a difference, not only in Syracuse and Central New York, but went on to do great things. Like I had mentioned, Richard Gere, the Baldwins, Bobcat, just some really cool people that have deep roots in Syracuse and Central New York, and have been gone on to either influence or entertain many others. And now with social media, like, any of us can be entertainers or influencers. I'd love to get to that point where my podcast is so widely popular that it's being recognized nationally, but any more spotlight that we can put on our local area that puts it in a positive light, I think is a great thing. So just a real quick podcast today that I wanted to do on some famous folks around from Syracuse and Central New York. And there's just something very interesting and super, I don't know if you would call it almost pop culture when we have these conversations. But like I said, drop a comment, let me know what you think. And until next time, take care of yourselves, take care of each other. Have a great day.